Hello guys, welcome to yet another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the best camera to buy to get into photography in 2024. Now if you're in Nigeria, you reckon with me that the last few months the economy of the country has not been the best, and having to shell out some money to buy a new camera can be a daunting process, and that's the point of this video. So hopefully by the end of this video I'll be able to shed some light on some areas that might have been, very technical to think about before, and then you have a very clear answer on the next camera you want to get to start photography in 2024. If that sounds like something you'd like to learn about, then stick around. And quite frankly, the last point that I talk about in this video is the most important of all. So without further ado, let's start. Now, throughout this video I'm going to be referring to photography and videography as photography. So whether you're a videographer or you're a photographer, I'm going to refer to it as photography. So this video is still going to be useful for you whether you're trying to get into videography or photography. In deciding what camera you want to get in 2024 to go into photography, there are some questions, or let's just say factors, you have to consider. And I'm going to talk about them shortly so that by the end of this video you'll be able to make a more informed decision. The first one is, are you taking photography as a hobby or as a profession or business? The reason why this is important is because if you're taking it as a profession, then yes, you might need to start looking at some more serious setup, because you most likely be doing it long term and you need it to be durable, you need it to handle some amount of stress. You're literally taking it as a venture, so you'd want to put a little bit more concern into it, right? As opposed to if you're taking it as an hobby. An hobby is something you're supposed to do sparingly, to indulge in your spare time, have some fun, and just so you don't have to have a very serious setup, especially if budget is somewhat of a concern for you. So if you don't have the most resources to splurge, you have to consider this. And also sometimes if you have a lot of resources too, if you buy something too complicated, it might snuff out your hobby. So if you get a camera that the interface is just really technical and complicated to operate, you might operate the camera less, and then it will defeat the purpose of getting in the first place. So you want to consider if you're going into photography as a hobby or as a profession. The second thing is, what aspect of photography or videography do you want to delve into? So the aspect of photography you want to delve into can sometimes determine the kind of camera you need to get. So ranging from food photography, product photography, weddings, events, fashion, you name it. There's different types of photography. Astrophotography, for instance, is photography about stars, the Milky Way. Mostly has to do with the law of low light, right? You obviously would not be able to use a camera with low light capabilities for astrophotography. Do you understand? So you want to be sure that the aspect of photography you're trying to delve into, the camera you're trying to get, or the camera you're looking at, or the potential camera can handle that. So when you have that figured out, you're one step closer to taking the right decision as regards the camera that you want to buy. The third thing you want to consider is your immediate budget and your future financial planning. Now, the way I see this, your budget is very, very important when it comes to something as important as starting photography in 2024. So your budget should not only be limited to you thinking about the money you're going to spend on your camera, because truth be told, sooner or later after you get the camera, you would still need to get support accessories and some other equipment that you use in tandem to make it a successful venture, especially if you're going into it as a business. So you don't want to take for instance 500,000 naira and use everything, because that's the budget you have, and use everything to buy a camera. You still have to buy lights, you have to buy different things, you have to buy lenses and all of that. So you want to put this into consideration before you buy the camera. So you have to make sure that you sort of split the money evenly. You don't have to get everything from the start, but you have to make sure that after you bought the camera, you still have enough to probably buy one or two basic things. Like take for instance, if you buy the camera, it's mostly advised by creators and some other photographers that you almost definitely need the Nifty 50. The Nifty 50 is the 50mm prime lens. It will most likely not come as a kit lens for your camera, so you need to purchase that separately. Now if you use all of your money to buy the camera, it's going to be challenging to get the lens. The fourth thing to consider is the camera support and the ease of access to accessories. Now let me explain. There are some cameras that don't get as much support from the manufacturers as some other brands, right? So you want to consider, you want to check the track record of each brand. There's different brands of camera. There's Nikon, there's Sony, there's Canon, there's Hasselblad, there's Olympus, there's Panasonic. There's a lot, actually, to name a few. You want to consider the track record of the brand you're trying to buy into and make sure that they have adequate support for their cameras, like if there is anything wrong with the cameras or if they give constant updates to the camera. So you want to make sure that there's that. Also, you want to make sure that within your local community or just accessible range that you're able to get accessories for your camera easily. So take for instance, you would find that you more often than not get more Canon parts, either in the, especially in Nigeria, either in the used market accessories. So maybe UK used or US used foreign lenses and maybe batteries and triggers and stuff like that. You get more of that for Canon than for Sony and for Nikon. So I'm not saying you should get Canon by any means. I'm just saying this is a point of consideration. So you want to make sure that whatever camera you're getting, you're able to get full support or decent support from the manufacturers, and you can easily get accessories to make your shooting experience easier. Also, in the same vein, you want to make sure that it is easy for you to have different options when you need to purchase these accessories. Now, a good example of this is, take for instance, there's a prime lens from a particular camera company, say Nikon for instance. If there's a prime lens and it is very, very expensive for that particular focal length and you need to get that lens. Now, if there are third-party options, third-party can be Rokinon or Sigma or any other company that is not Nikon that makes that same lens and to a very good standard of quality, but is going to offer it for cheaper. So if you don't have that option, it means that you'll be limited to buying just that lens from Nikon, which is really expensive. Whereas if you had the option, you could have bought it from any other third-party company. So you have to consider that too, because it's going to help you in the long run. Lastly, you want to consider, are you going into photography or videography? Now, I know I said I'm going to refer to photography and videography as photography, but at this point, it is something you have to consider. So if you're trying to be a photographer fully, or you're trying to mostly be a photographer, then it can impact the kind of camera you're going to be getting. Take for instance, the Sony a7S III is an amazing camera for shooting video, especially in low light, but it's not the best camera if you're fully trying to go into photography, because it does not have high megapixels on the sensor like some other cameras. Take for instance the Sony a7R4 or some other cameras from Sony. So what that means is that while this sensor was made to be, the megapixels of the sensor was made to be small so that it can have more width for low light videography and capturing low light shots and stuff like that, it is not the best if maybe the kind of photography you want to delve into is something that requires a lot of detail, like sport, like portraiture. So by the time you consider these 5 parameters or questions or whatever you want to call them, honestly, you realize that the decision of choosing the camera you want to use while starting photography in 2024 will be considerably easier to make, and then you'll be able to make the right choice. And then I have to mention that if the issue or the challenge you have is budget, maybe you don't have enough to even get a camera, especially considering the economic situation in Nigeria, I can easily tell you that the best camera is the camera in your hands, which oftentimes is your mobile phone camera. So you have to start from somewhere. You don't have to wait till you have the money to get the most fancy or the most capable camera. Right, most of the best photographers in Nigeria and beyond, they started with their smartphones or even worse cameras. You can even get a point and shoot. The point is that you'd be gaining some experience and you'd be making memories regardless. And honestly, this point even applies to people that want to take it as a professional or as a business, because if you're trying to do it as a hobby, you can get any camera. You can even use your smartphone camera and you would honestly do wonders. Anyway, that's the end of the video for today, guys. I hope that I was able to at least make this process a little bit more simplified for at least one person out there. Happy shooting, happy decision making. Going to catch you the next one. Take care of yourselves. Till next time. Peace.